All right. Sorry for being late, y'all. I was in a dissertation defense. Those things you can't skip out on those early. So sorry about that. We're gonna go ahead and get started for today. First, I'm here in the Slack, as you can see. We're gonna use that kind of a little more today. Does anybody have any questions for today? Does anybody have any questions for today? Remember, next Tuesday there's a Woody deliverable, but you can do that anytime starting on Friday, or you can do it really anytime, but you have until next Tuesday. Any questions for me? Let me know in the Slack if you have any questions. Questions before we get started. All right, any questions? Just let me know if you have any questions before we get started in the Slack chat. All right, one question is, why did you tell the TA to mess up our projects? Well, first of all, the TA probably did some very minimal messing up of your project, like deleting a file or a folder or folders, something like that, which is very simple for you to correct if you know Git. This is a good chance to learn Git. Now, the reason that that was done is because that happens all the time in the real world. Not that somebody comes in and on purpose deletes something that you know that you need, but it happens all the time that they accidentally delete something that you need or mess up your project or break the build. That will absolutely happen in a real world project. In fact, I mean, maybe not, but it's almost certain that you personally will break the build at some point. And so it's important that you know, first of all, the pain that causes other people, and second of all, how to fix it. So that's why we had the TA mess with your projects by deleting something or changing something or whatever they did. That's a great question, though. That's why we did that. We didn't do that because we enjoy seeing you guys suffer. It is because that is going to happen in the real world. You may as well experience for the first time here in the safe confines of VCU so that when you see it in the real world, it doesn't kick your butt. Any other questions before we go ahead and get started? Anybody else got questions? Put them in the chat. Put them in the chat if you got questions. Okay, well, I see that nobody has at least put any questions in the chat yet, although some people, it looks like they're typing. So I will answer questions if I see them in the Slack chat. So we're going to learn a little bit more about Git and about GitHub Actions and whatnot today. So for those of you that are here and are here, more or less on time, I'd like to offer. Does anybody have a project that has been messed up by the TA? And if so, and you need some help getting it fixed. Okay, so does anybody have a project that got messed up by the TA or by myself? I messed up one project, and you're having trouble getting it back. Does anybody have one? Let me know in the chat or in Slack. Yes. So Saffudding does, and what is the URL to that project? Great. So for both of y'all, Brandon and Saffudding, do you have URLs that you want to share? And do I have access? Remember, my username is David C. Shepherd. We can maybe either walk through doing that together. So Cassie is saying when I looked it up, you just had to revert that commit. Yes, that is absolutely a way that you could fix things. If you have a bad commit, you can revert that commit. Absolutely. All right. Here's one. Brandon's the first one to get his up. Oops, I missed it. All right. So let's take a look at this project. Here we have a commit from the TA, which we know now is adversarial. And you can see we put some great comments like, hey, hope this helps. And you can see that there were some things that were deleted. Now, let's think about the different ways in which we could fix this. First of all, I'm going to get I'm going to clone this. And I need to accept the invitation real quick. All right, so I'm going to clone it. And I'm going to go ahead and clone it using this, which is a source tree, which is, as you know, my preferred. Go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. This is called A Game. All right. Clone it into there, and I'm going to go ahead and clone. All right. So there we can see, I'm going to show you this, that we have the commits here, which are the same as the commits here. Now, who can tell me what I'm watching? I'm watching the Slack here, as you can see. And what I want you to do is, who can tell me what I should do to fix this situation? Who can tell me what I should do? You tell me in either one of these interfaces. What should I do to fix this situation? Who can tell me? Somebody's saying right click. Cass is saying right click on the commit and say revert. Well, it says reverse, but I guess same idea, right? Yep, so in source tree, you could right click and I could say reverse commit. Who can tell me what's going to happen if I do that? Who can tell me what's going to happen if I do that? Well, y'all are close. Y'all are very close. What happens if I do that is that the commit will be reversed, but how does that happen? Does it just magically go away from the history? and it undoes what they. So Cass is saying that it undoes what they did, and the state will. And Joe's saying the state will be restored to before the commit. But how will it look in source tree, for instance? Like, does that node still exist? Does it create a new node? It adds a new commit. Thank you, Absolute One. Big props to you. Yep. And so Cass understands too. It restores the files they deleted. Everything turns green. Basically, a new commit takes place. It appears as a new commit. Now, I believe this is Brandon's, right? So Brandon, what I want you to do is I want you to go here in GitHub, and I want you to use this. Where is it? Right click. Where's the right click? Oh, do it here. Oh, so you can't do it here. I thought you were saying you could do it here too. Never mind. I thought you could do it in the web interface too. Let's see if there is any way to do it in the web interface. All right. So, does anybody know how to do it in the web interface? I have never done it in the web interface. I'm honestly not even sure if it's possible. Does anybody know how to do it in the web interface? I'm just curious. I don't see anybody chatting to tell me the answer, so I am going to do it on, yeah. I know you can do it from the command line. So we're going to do this together. Or Brandon, never mind. I thought you could do it from the web UI too. So we're not going to do it. So we're going to do it from right here in source tree. Okay? So I'm going to hit right click, hit reverse commit. And it says, oh, are you sure? Because that's unusual. You usually don't want to do that. But yes, in this case we do. And I have that reverted. And it is already committed. So now, what would I do to go ahead and put that up here online? What would I need to do now? Who can tell me the next step? You can tell me here in Slack or on the chat in YouTube. Push. Now, Brandon, are you using source tree or are you using GitHub Desktop? GitHub Desktop. Yes, I would definitely want to push. That's how I would get this back to the server. But Brandon, I wanted to ask, are you using GitHub Desktop or are you using source tree? Ah, okay, you've been using it on. Okay, so I'm not as familiar with it on Android Studio, but probably there's something similar that you could do, and you could go ahead and just revert it and push it. You don't have to use source tree. You don't have to use anything that I suggest. Android Studio built-in stuff is totally fine. It works very similarly. I just always like to have this kind of standalone one because it gives me more control. It's like, just prefer that personally. You don't have to. Now, all I would have to do to fix things for Brandon's group would be to hit push here. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do that because I want them to have the experience of doing that. But do you see how this is done? The rollback might be the button in Android Studio. I haven't used Android Studio to do a revert, but rollback and revert sound very similar. So I think it's very likely. Now, who could tell me when this would be harder to do? I'm going to go ahead and let's see, go back here. Yeah, so somebody's saying in GitHub Desktop, this might even be easier to do. So let's look at that. GitHub Desktop. I also have that, which I will show, and I will clone this repository, which we just did. Let's put this one. And yep, all right, I'm cloning it again. So now you can see I have it cloned. Let's look at the history. Uh-oh, look at this. This is that bad commit again. But look what I can do right here. I can do revert changes in the commit, right? Which is exactly what you want to do, and that makes this commit go away. Okay, so you can follow those directions if you really wanted to do different stuff. But now, Cass is getting at the point that I'm trying to make. Is if you were in the middle of changes and then the TA messed up your branch, then that could make it hard to fix things, right? So check it out. Let me show you something that you could do that would be fine. So let's say I'm working on this. I just have the normal version right now. Well, I have the version with the TA changes in. Does anybody know what stash does? Does anybody know what stash does? Let me know in the chat. Stash, yeah. So here's what I would doing. Here's what I would be doing. So like, let's say I was working. I noticed something changed on the server, and so now I had a problem because I have my changes that I'm halfway through on my local version, but they're different than the one on the server, and I don't want to commit my local changes yet, but I want to mess with the stuff that's on the server. You can take the files that you've changed locally, stash them, which just saves them in a special stash, and then get the latest from the server, fix everything up like you want it to, and then come back and unstash, I forget what it is, restore your stash or whatever, and then go back and do whatever you're working on. That makes sense? All right, so another thing that I want to bring to your attention that has been brought to my attention that maybe some of y'all don't do. Now, how many people work on the main branch? Can you let me know in the chat or in Slack? Do you work on the main branch? How many people are working on the main branch? Let me know either way. You're working on the main branch or not. So Christopher is not working on the main branch. Good for you. Some people don't even know, which is fine. That's what we're learning about today. Ian is not. Cass was working on the main branch the whole time until their partner told him how to branch last night. Excellent. So you learned something. Meredith is not working on the main branch, working on their own branch. And Brandon works on whatever comes up when he opens his project. Excellent. So, guess what would happen if you weren't working on the main branch when I did that adversarial commit? Who can guess? Who can guess? What would happen if you weren't working on the main branch? If you weren't working on the main branch and I did, yes. Kaya has got it right. Yep, if you're on your own branch, the files would be fine. But Brandon brings up when you merge back, you would have to deal when you merge back to the main branch. There would be some problems. What would actually happen? Y'all are all right. I just want to say, great. What would happen is you would just continue happily working on your branch. And then when you decided to merge back into the main branch, you would probably notice the problem. And then you could just, have everything committed in your branch, go back to the main branch, fix the problem, and then go back to your branch, merge it back in. Okay, so that's another advantage of working on the main branch is that, on your own branch is that you don't get messed up when the main branch or the main build is broken. Okay? So, all right. Now, all right, Brandon, I'm going to do you a big favor. Here comes your free revert for coming to class, participating. Yours might be fixed now. Uh-oh, you already reverted it. Well, great. We have double reverts now. You didn't push, so you're going to have to pull my changes. All right, so who knows how to create a new branch from here? Look at what I'm looking at. How would I create a new branch so that I work on a branch that is my own and I don't mess with the main branch? Just click the branch button. That's exactly right. I'm going to click the branch and I'm going to say Dave's branch. And I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Now, right now, they're both the same because I haven't made any changes. But let's go ahead and look at this code. Here's the code. And I'm not going to do anything interesting. I'm just going to say Dave here, save it. And then I'm going to make this commit. Once it realizes there's a change, stage it and commit it. What a great change. And I'm going to go ahead and push it. Why not? Because it's not going to hurt you. All right, so now you see that I'm on Dave's branch. There is a main branch. And if we go back here, now, if I refresh, of course, you'll see that, hey, look, Brandon has already fixed everything up. Theirs is back to normal. Way to go, Brandon. And then I could even look at Dave's branch and just see that great change that I messed with a minute ago. Now, somebody was just saying, what should we do in terms of syncing the main branch and our branch? So, Brandon, could you go ahead and make a change to the main branch? You can see here, ladies and gentlemen, that he has already made one change because he merged everything back. So here's the main branch. Here's my branch. Brandon, can you make a meaningless change to the README or something and commit that? Could you go ahead and do that and let me know when you do it? And of course, commit it and push it. I'll be kind of monitoring, so hopefully I'll see when you do it. But go ahead, Brandon, and make a meaningless change to README. Push it to the server if you don't mind. And then once you're done doing that, we can hopefully see that over here. So Cass is asking, this is a great question, is there any time we should work on the main branch instead of our own branch? All right, you can always work on the main branch if you wanted to, and if it's a small enough project, you can definitely work on the main branch, like if it's your own project or something. But anytime you're working in a group, usually for any significant work, you're going to want to do that on a branch. Now, if it's just a really quick change, like small changes, you might want to do that on the main branch. You know what happens though is when you're working on a real project, there's going to be the release branch, the development branch. There's all kinds of different branches, and you have to really think about this a bit more. So it's a good practice to always just work off the main branch and then merge back into whichever is the main branch. All right, let's see. Brandon, are you having any luck doing any commits? It's okay if you're not having any luck, just doing a commit to that README. I'll move on. And so Cass is asking, so you would branch off of a branch that branched off of a branch potentially? Yeah, so often there'll be like a dev branch, a release branch, and so you'll have many different branches. So the release will be something that's released to the public. And so that'll be stable. Like you're not actually putting anything new into that until you're ready to release. The development branch will be something that you're committing to every day, like you're merging back into from all these feature branches every day or every few days. Okay? And so, um, you have these different branches. It can get complicated really quick. Like I want to show you basically get flow diagram. For instance, here is one of my favorite kind of explanations. Let me make this bigger so you can see. I think I might have showed this to you before, but I want to go ahead and show you one more time. Open image, tab. So for instance, here is the development branch where lots of things are happening, and this is where most of the work happens. However, check it out. When you want to work on something like a feature, you branch off of that, you make your commits, and then whenever you're ready, you move back in. Okay? And then for smaller features, you do that. For smaller features, you do that. Now, if you look over at master, which is really kind of like release, you always go from master to the development branch. And then once you've done a bunch of changes, you might actually merge back out and release. Sometimes you're also going to go from development to a release branch. So where you kind of stabilize thing and do bug fixes, and then, you release that version. So this can all get very complicated. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But you need to have kind of a basic model of there's like development branches, there's feature branches. Those are two important concepts that you're going to want to know. Now, Brandon is saying that he has just committed, I think, and you need to push it. Brandon, make sure you've pushed. Oh yeah, it looks like you probably did. Might take a second to update. Let's see. Okay, cool. So Brandon has actually switched to my branch. All right, so if you look at my branch, he has actually made a change there. So you can see how things would be working on my branch, and then this branch is independent. So I'm sorry, Brandon, what I actually meant was for you to make a change on your branch, and you could see that branch growing that way. But this is fine too. And so eventually we would make a bunch of changes and we would then merge back into main. All right. So does anybody have any specific, I want to make sure I don't miss any specific questions about Git. Any specific questions about Git that you have right now before I move on to GitHub Actions? Yeah, remember if you want to switch between branches, all you have to do is double click and oops. And that's how you would change between things. Check out existing is what I meant to do there. So you can see. Yep. All right, I'm not seeing any questions on that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you something else that I think is cool. Now, who knows what GitHub Actions are? Who knows what GitHub Actions are? And let me know in the chat, does anybody know what GitHub Actions are? Yes or no? All right. I'm seeing at least one person with no idea. All right, great. GitHub Actions. this is a way to automate your build. So you know how we made a bad commit to your project, but you likely didn't notice it immediately. Why didn't you notice it immediately? Because nothing happened, right? Like there was just a commit. Nothing was building after that commit, so you were not notified. Nothing happened. Here's what we're going to do. Again, I'm going to be helping this group a little bit by setting up, this is called an Android CI action. And what this will do is this will run a build of your Android app on the server every time you commit. So let's try and set this one up. Okay, I've set it up by just clicking on it, and this should just run the default thing. So I'm not going to mess with it at all. I hope it just works, and it should. And I'm going to say adding GitHub Actions to project, and let's see if it builds. And I'm going to commit directly to the main branch in this case because we want to do the action in this case on the main branch so that whenever anybody commits to the main branch, we have a free check to see if it actually compiles or not. Okay, so I'm committing it, and that should be all I need to do. Now, when I go back to actions, you can see that it is queued. And what will happen within a few minutes, I think, is that this will actually start building on the server. Let's see if we can actually watch it. I think we can watch it if we go to, oops. No, not that way. All right, so does everybody understand what is happening right now? It is, we have committed it, and it is now building on the server just like it builds in Android Studio. Now, why would we ever want to do this? Can anybody tell me in the chat, or in the chat, why would we ever want to do this? Can anybody tell me why would I want to do this? Take a guess if you don't know. It is correct, Joe, that you don't want to push a program that doesn't compile. That is absolutely correct. You never want to do that. However, sometimes that happens, and you want to be notified. So the purpose of this is, look, for instance, in this case, the build failed. And that means that perhaps this build has this project has some problems that it won't build. And so we want to know those as soon as they happen so that you can fix them. Okay, so let's look into it. Why did this fail? It says, depreciated Gradle features were used in this build, making it incompatible with Gradle 8. So if you wanted this to go ahead and work, what you would have to do is you would have to eliminate the depreciated Gradle features that were used in your project. I think you were using some kind of Gradle 7.0. You may just want to upgrade your Android Studio and then upgrade Gradle, and that might work for you. Honestly, I don't know. But this would probably take a little bit longer to work on. Now, who else can show me? Somebody else put a URL up here. Let's see. Who else put a URL? Can somebody else share their URL with me? I'll help you set up a GitHub action. Yeah, the builder is using Gradle 8, and so you guys you need to use Gradle 8. What I could do, I guess I can try this too. All right, so I can look into your project and see, but if anybody else has a URL that you want to put in Slack, Right now, I'm going to look into this project and see if I can figure out how to upgrade it to Gradle 8. All right, I'm not going to commit anything. Don't worry about that. I'm not going to commit anything, so don't worry about that. Does anybody else have a project that they think we could set up in GitHub Actions? And please put the URL right here in Slack so that I can give it a try. All right, great. Here's one. Here's two. This one was first, so I'm going to go ahead and try this one. All right, here I am. It looks like, now, let's look at the Gradle properties and see if we can figure out what Gradle they're using. I can't see. Can't tell from there. I'm going to just go ahead and do this. I'm going to go some actions, and I want to enable them. I don't know why it's not enabled here. Oh, I need to have rights. Can whoever add me to this to your project? So you got to add me, David C. Shepard, to your project. Whoever this is, add me to your project, David C. Shepard. I don't know if I can request it, but it is. I'll put it in the chat here. You are definitely going to have to know how to add GitHub Actions. That's why we're going over it today. So whoever this is, maybe add me. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking at Joe's. Let's see if Joe has added me. He has added an invitation, which I will do. And then I'll look at the actions and I'll say, hey, let's try and set up this workflow. And I'm going to just commit it. And we're going to see how this one does. Now I'm going back to actions. You can see it has started. It has been queued. We're going to go ahead and watch it. Now, the interesting thing is usually this is done like separately on a separate server. You'll have a build server that's watching your GitHub repository or your Git repository whenever it's committed to, then your build server. Uh-oh, we have another failure. So it looks like there is some kind of chmod inside of the Gradle file, which seems odd. So you can see this one didn't work either. So you can see that this is like not trivial to set up a build on a server. And the reason it's not is because like when it builds on your machine, that's great, but it needs to build like on everybody's machine. Okay, so which is an entirely different thing. So this, as you can see, is probably why this isn't building. It has this Gradle 7, and you know, maybe you have some other things going on here. Potentially, if you just upgraded this, that would be good enough. But I don't want to mess up your project, so I'm not going to do that. And for this one, it seems like you have something weird going on in your build. I don't know how you created your build, but you would need to try and fix that. The point that I'm trying to make here is that the building on your building on your machine versus building on a like a build server is two entirely different things. Now let's try one more. Does anybody else, can either Cassie, can you give me permissions, or can somebody else give me their URL? We're going to try one more person to try and set up their GitHub Actions. Yeah, so you want when I say everybody's, like, building on your machine is one thing, but building on everybody else's machine is another thing, which is better. And then building on everybody's machine plus the build server usually means at that point that you have like a very nice, um, you have a very nice like build. All right, does anybody else have a URL they want to share with me, or should I get one? I guess I can just grab one for my invitations. Let's see. I think I have some invitations. Here is one. So should have an invite. Let's see, where's the Android CI? Don't see it by default there. Let's try this one. Set up the actions here. No, that's not what I want to do. All right, am I a member of this? All right, so what I'm trying to do now is accept this invitation. I think I need to see, how do I accept this invitation? All right, has anybody else invited me to their GitHub? Nope. Come on, y'all. Here's the invitation. There we go. There's a good one. Okay, here we go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do this Android CI with this one. And I'm gonna go ahead and try and trigger this one. Let's see if we can get this one to work. So this is restaurants near me. This is the Longin, if I'm saying that right. They are starting to build, setting up the job, doing some stuff. All that is happening. And it looks like this one is going to work. Or at least it started to work. So you can see this one's just started to work. And again, I don't know why that was a problem for somebody else's. That seems unlikely that that would be a problem. Might try and run that again. But everything else seems to be working for this. And we're almost there. It's getting exciting. We'll go back to Joe's in a minute to probably just rerun it. I don't know what's up with that. We are getting pretty close. This one looks like it might even pass. Getting real close. And so this is what all this is doing is compiling on the server, going through all the steps in the Gradle file. And it does take a minute, it looks like, but so far so good. Definitely compiling your project. You can see it's complaining about something using a depreciated API, but that's okay, it's still compiling. So Lint found errors in the project. So I want you to see that everything went good except depreciated Gradle features were used, okay? So Lint found 2 errors and 30 warnings. The first failure was that some view is not constrained. So there is some Lint things that you're going to want to identify before this passes, okay? So this actually didn't fail to compile, but Lint, which is a static analysis tool that gives you feedback on your code, actually caused the problem. Okay, so the other thing is that depreciated Gradle features were used in this build, making it incompatible with Gradle 8.0. The deal is there that you can probably make it compatible with Gradle 8.0 without upgrading, okay? So you don't have to actually upgrade it. You can just make it compatible. And this is going to be something that you're going to want to do for a future deliverable for this project. And we'll look into that. But for this one, for instance, you would want to figure out how to fix this. The view is not constrained. Then you would want to run it again and then figure out whether this error went away or not, okay? So the process of making it build on the server, yeah, so I don't know what would it take off the top of my head to make it compatible. You're right, it is vague intentionally because I don't know. But that is something that could be done, I promise you, could be done. And for instance, you might just Google how to make it compatible with GitHub Actions and see what happens, okay? And you can probably find some answers. Now, do you guys and gals understand how you would go about fixing this? The lint error that we're seeing here, lint is a static analysis tool, found 2 errors and 30 warnings. Here is the first failure, and that is this right here, that you would need to add constraints, okay? So you would probably just have to update the layout. I would probably, again, Google this type of error and see what it says to do. So add constraints to your layout. Yep, exactly. And then run it again, and then you would see the second error if you ran it again, and then you would probably be able to go ahead and pass it. So a lot of this one passed. It just failed way down here at the lint debug. Okay? Does everybody understand what's going on here? We're compiling it on the server. They have some better checks than what you have on your own computer. They have, for instance, Lint running, which is a static analysis tool, and the code failed to pass that because it had some style issues, like they didn't have constraints. Now, people are asking, how do we set this up again? All you got to do, remember, it was super easy to set up in that I just selected Android CI and said, set up this workflow, and then committed it, okay? So, for instance, here we have Joe's, which for some reason failed. I'm not even sure why, but I could just rerun it. Let's see if it runs properly this time. But remember, you just go to Actions and set it up. Actions is a automated build tool, okay? And so Actions allows you to still don't know why that is failing. That's interesting, but you would need to Google this problem and figure out why this is failing. Actions is basically a compilation tool. It's part of what we would call continuous integration or automated builds. It's when you set a commit, like if you were to commit something, these actions would run and you would get another failure on the server. Yeah, so I would need to look into this I can't tell you off the cuff what's wrong here, but actually I can show you how I would go about trying to fix this. I would just copy this and I would search for it. And I load a project in Git when I get this thing, and then script. So it looks like you need to generate this Gradle wrapper, right? Yeah, so like you could probably add this. I would look at this. So Joe, look into this and see if you can fix it by basically following directions here. Remember, almost all problems that you run into are not new problems. So again, we're using this Android actions, the actions on GitHub to check your code to make sure that when you check in code, it automatically builds them and it'll notify people if you have any problems, okay? All right, that's it. That's going to be it for today. Now you know a little bit more about Git and you know a little bit more about GitHub Actions. Are there any questions? Any follow-up questions for today? On Friday, we'll have a normal lecture. Today was just to help you guys get unstuck in case our Git seeds messed you up too much. Any questions today? Let me know in the Slack channel. Otherwise, I'm about to drop off. Somebody's asking how often do we merge and commit? I like to commit every time I'm working. Because that keeps my code safe and I don't lose it. But that's when I'm working on a feature branch. Remember, when I'm working on a feature branch, you can commit like every hour if you want to, and then just keep it safe there on the server. There is no other questions. There is no grade scope today. There's no grade scope today. And another question, there's no coding Friday. No, there's no coding Friday. There will be a lecture on Friday, but it won't be a coding Friday. And Adam's asking, the only deliverable we have is just a picture of our commits. And yes, that's right. A picture of your commits. You may have to submit several pictures or something. And yeah, but that's it. Cass is acting, what was due Tuesday versus Friday? Next Tuesday is when it's finally due, but you can turn it in as early as Friday in case you want to go home for Thanksgiving. And it's just pictures of your commits showing that you have committed lots and lots to your project. Any other questions? All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for today. Hope you all have a great day, and I will see you on Friday. Take it easy.